All right. Good evening. My name is Anthony Johnson, and I want to welcome you to our annual Peach State Tour. We are excited to have you here. Unfortunately, we're not able to join you all in person due to COVID-19. But however, we have three great institutions that are here to speak with you all today virtually. So I'm going to kind of give you a layout of how things are going to go this evening. Um, So the way that the Peach State tour will go, we're going to do three 10-minute presentations. So you're going to hear from Georgia Tech, Georgia State, and the University of Georgia. Then we're going to close it out with a Q&A session. So we're only going to keep you here for an hour tonight. So that's going to give you the layout of how things are going to go tonight. We're kind of waiting for things to level off and let people get logged on. So again, as we're continuing to do that, once again, my name is Anthony Johnson. I'm going to moderate tonight's Peach State Tour. We are definitely excited that you all are here to join us. We've got some great information. You're going to get some updated information from each institution, and here's some of the great things that are happening on campus. You will notice that you are muted, and you'll also notice that you can't be seen. However, we do want you to send us questions. So you may say, well, how do I send questions? There's a Q&A part on the screen. If you are on a mobile device, just tap the screen on the bottom and the Q&A session will come up. Please ask us questions. You can ask each institution individually. So if you're going to do that, make sure you say, you know, this question is for Georgia Tech or this question is for Georgia State, because we have folks from each admissions office from all three institutions behind the scenes. They're not on the cameras, and they are going to answer your questions. So just keep that in mind that we do want you to ask questions throughout the presentation, and you're more than welcome to ask each individual institution. So again, we're still kind of waiting for folks to get logged on, and we're going to be with you in just a few minutes. If you do have a private question, feel free to, at the end of the presentation, you'll see all three admissions offices websites. And so you can go to all three or one of those websites and you can ask your individual questions privately. And so that's an option as well. If you do not have a question tonight, you kind of pondered what you heard and you decided, oh, I do have a question. It could be tomorrow, could be next week. Again, go to our websites and you can definitely get in touch with us in that, and we'll get back in touch with you. So kind of waiting for things to level off and let folks get logged on. Again, my name is Anthony Johnson. I'm welcoming you to the Peach State Tour. Again, this is a 10-minute presentation from each institution. You're going to hear from Georgia Tech, you'll hear from Georgia State, and you'll hear from the University of Georgia. So we're just kind of letting participants get logged on, and we're going to get started in just a few minutes. We want to thank you for joining us on this rainy day in Atlanta. So if you're in Metro Atlanta, it is raining today. So hopefully you are indoors, you are somewhere safe, and ready to hear what we have to say. We're going to get started in just a little bit. Kind of waiting to let things kind of get leveled off. I see people are still kind of logging on. Again, and some of you have taken advantage of this already. If you have a question, just tap on the Q&A section, and you can leave us a question. If it's specific for one of the institutions, Georgia State, Georgia Tech, or UGA, feel free to indicate that. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead. Looks like things are starting to level off, and our participant level is kind of coasting at this point. So what I'm going to do is You're going to hear from Georgia Tech first. And so I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Mary Tipton Woolley, who is going to give you the first presentation about Georgia Tech. Mary, it's all yours.
All right, thank you so much, Anthony, and thank you to everyone for taking some time out of your evening, perhaps it's dinner time, to spend with us. We're really thrilled to be with you this evening. We've been doing these Peach State tours together for nearly 20 years as a group, though never virtually, but like many things related to COVID-19, while there's many stressors on all of us, there's also a lot of great opportunities, like being with so many of you virtually tonight. So I just want to say thank you. We're so glad to have you joining us. And Susan, if you'll jump to the next slide, we'll get started with talking specifically about Georgia Tech here for the next few minutes. Georgia Tech was founded in 1885. That was the end of the Civil War in the South. And Georgia Tech was founded with the explicit purpose of educating the engineers that would design, build, and run the factories that would really move the South into a more industrialized society. Why does that matter today? It matters because we are still an institution living those original ideals of working to improve the human condition through our motto of progress and service. Next slide. That commitment to progress and service has honestly never been more apparent than it is right now in the midst of the COVID-19 pandemic. Students like Kendez Craig, who you see on your screen, have worked to design and build life-saving equipment to battle COVID-19. Alums like our former Inventure Prize winner, Colby Hanley, pivoted his startup business, which was making parts for archery, to design one-size respirator mask, whose printing protocols have now been sent to healthcare workers on the front lines of the pandemic. And certainly, last but not least, our researchers and faculty at Georgia Tech that have done things like worked with the CDC to develop updated dashboards to track COVID cases around the world. Our faculty that are working with colleagues at Emory and the Children's Healthcare here in Atlanta through the National Institute of Health to speed development and evaluation of tests for COVID-19. And honestly, that's just scratching the surface of much that is being done on our campus to help battle COVID-19. And it's really an excellent example of us living out our motto of progress and service. Next slide, please. Perhaps one of the most distinguishing characteristics of Georgia Tech is the number of majors that we offer, or perhaps I should say the small number of majors that we offer. Our 36 majors span a range from public policy to computer science, or modern languages to biomedical engineering, and they are all grounded in research, technology, and innovation. It's just not something you can escape as a student at Georgia Tech. It's truly at the core of who we are. I actually think the most important thing on this slide for you to know is that retention rate number. At 97%, that's in really rare air with just a few other institutions in the US. But it's truly a reflection that the students we're bringing to our campus are prepared for the academic rigors that they'll face at Georgia Tech, and that we have support systems in place on our campus to ensure the success of those students. Next slide, please. Academics is beyond just the classroom at Georgia Tech. You see that most frequently in students that are taking part in work experiences like co-ops and internships, international experiences where over 50% of our graduates will have an international experience before they graduate, and through undergraduate research programs like our Undergraduate Research Opportunity Program, or UROP for short. It's also really important to understand that at Georgia Tech, the leap from research to entrepreneurship, it's really not a large leap. Through programs like CreateX, which aims to build entrepreneurial confidence in our students, or programs like the Inventure Prize. I mentioned that earlier, that Colby is a former winner of the Inventure Prize. That's a program on campus that helps launch students' business startup ideas. Our students have many opportunities, those are just a couple, to pursue their own development and startup companies if that's an area of interest for them. Next slide, please. It's not all about academics for students at Georgia Tech. Our students also balance that with time for fun, whether it's on campus through one of our many organizations on campus or even in the city of Atlanta. And you might be wondering what that looks like right now in the midst of a campus that feels a little bit different this fall due to COVID, but yet I still see students participating in organizations virtually and maintaining those connections to other students our campus and our community through the myriad ways that students are involved on campus. Next slide, please. Now more than ever, the value of a college education. I mean, gosh, we've been talking about this for years, probably always in my career, but I can't imagine a year that families are thinking more about what kind of a value they're going to get out of a college education. We recognize that the cost of a Georgia Tech education is a lot for many families, but it really is a competitive cost compared to our other top-ranked peers, both public and private. Georgia Tech is in a really competitive place, but that's reinforced even more by students who graduate with many different job opportunities, over 7,000 companies interviewing on our campus last year. They're interviewing students for internships, for co-ops, and for jobs after graduation. All of those things that kind of build one upon the other to ensure that students have a lot of opportunities upon graduation. And then with an average starting salary of around $74,000, you can imagine that that's really setting students up to be very successful when they graduate from Georgia Tech. Next slide, please. I want to spend the next couple of minutes that we're together talking about admission. To be honest with you, if we were together in a setting live in a normal year, whatever that means, this is probably the slide I would speed through. But there's some things that I think are really important to focus on this year more than ever. And the first one of those is just to acknowledge that this year is unlike any that have in my over 20-year career in admission. We absolutely recognize the stress that this moment in time and all the many things that are happening in our society, that stress that's really placing on families and students. And we're committed to being as transparent with you as we can be and providing the information that you need to work and navigate your way through the college admission process. I should first just note that like many institutions, we really review students in a holistic manner. The really great news for our staff is that we feel really well prepared to evaluate all the different pieces of information that you may want to share with us this year. The context of your home life and your school experience, they've always mattered. They do even more so this year. We want to consider the impacts that COVID may have had on your school experience and your home life. And there's opportunities in various parts of the application where you'll be able to convey those to us. We also recognize that standardized testing has been more challenging than ever this year. And in fact, I noticed that the very first question in Q&A was about standardized testing. So this is one of the perks of going first in this, I guess, is that I get to share that we're really pleased today the University System of Georgia announced that testing requirements will be waived for 2021. That is for the spring, summer, and fall classes of entering in 2021. There's a lot of details left to unpack. You're literally getting about 5-hour-old information. So I would just ask you to hang with us over the next several days and several weeks as we continue to develop exactly what that's going to look like in each of our individual admission offices and really work to answer all the questions that we know you're going to have about the best way to approach this in your admission process this year. So I think asking questions tonight is really helpful for us because it gives us a better understanding of what's on your mind about testing with this information. But I ask you to understand that we certainly don't have all the answers yet, but we're working really hard to make sure that we can give those to you in as short a fashion as possible. But the most important thing I can stress is that we feel really well equipped to read applications without test scores. In a holistic environment, we're considering the courses that you take in high school, we're considering your performance, all that contextual information that I talked about. It really is setting us up well to evaluate a student in an environment where testing may not be part of an application. The last thing that I want to mention specific to Georgia Tech is that we made a couple of changes to our early action plans this year, so our application deadlines. We always hesitate to say changes because if you're applying to Georgia Tech this year, you didn't apply in a past year, but we also recognize that especially in our state, you know a lot of information from older friends, maybe siblings, neighbors who have been through this process before. So we're going to stick with changes for tonight and recognizing that Georgia students start school early. Most of y'all probably have been in school for at least a couple of days, some of you for a couple of weeks. We also know that in many parts of the country, schools aren't going to start till the middle of September. So in recognizing that, we are moving our early action deadline for non-Georgia students to November the 1st. What this means for those of you here in Georgia is that we can prioritize our review of your applications earlier in our early action process. And our commitment to you is that we'll have an admission decision to you no later than before we go on winter break this year. And that's a pretty big change. That's about a month earlier than we've been delivering early action decisions for the last few years. Next slide, please. And I want to mention something about our transfer process. It's really important for you to understand at Georgia Tech, there's a lot of different doors through which a student may enter to obtain a Georgia Tech degree. Each year we enroll over 700 students through our transfer options through each of the semesters. This is a really viable pathway for or to a Georgia Tech degree for many students each year. Next slide, please. Thinking about, we talked earlier about the value of a Georgia Tech education. It's also important to understand a little bit about ways we may be able to support students paying for their Georgia Tech education. We do that through a variety of financial aid financial assistance, like need-based financial aid, or some of the creative ways to pay. You heard me talk about co-op and internships. I should mention that those are always paid if it's a co-op and almost always paid if it's an internship. And students in a co-op position may earn $10,000 or more in a given semester. So those kinds of things listed there as creative ways to pay are really viable options for many students. And then last but not least is merit scholarship, which are typically in a given year, we'll have about 5% of our students enter Georgia Tech with a merit scholarship from us. There's a lot more information to unpack about this. It's available on our website. It's available through our individual information sessions. And I would certainly encourage you to use those resources if this is an important consideration for you. Next slide. Last but not least, I just want to once again say thank you so much for joining us. We're really glad to be able to share this information with you tonight. We have so many opportunities for virtual visits coming up in the next few months. I know a lot of us are living day to day with Zoom or Skype or Teams fatigue, whatever platform you're using, BlueJeans in our office. But many of these opportunities are really important to you as you're considering what college might be the right fit for you next year. We have opportunities for you to engage more with our admissions staff, with faculty and staff from around campus, as well as some of our student tour guide groups that are going to be doing small group meetings with students so you can really get that student perspective. So again, I would just encourage you to go to our website and take a look at some of those opportunities if you want to look a little bit more in depth at Georgia Tech. And with that, I want to turn it over to Kenzo, and hopefully we'll be joining you back here in just a few minutes to answer any questions that you may have. Thanks.
Great, thank you so much, Mary. So once again, thank you all so much for coming or logging on today and joining us for the session today. And I'll be presenting here with the information at Georgia State, but to give you some information, my name is Kenzo. I am one of the admissions counselors here at Georgia State University, and I oversee the North Cobb, Cherokee, Bartow County areas and the homeschool student population as well. So if you fall into any of those, feel free to reach out to me. I'd be more than happy to assist you. To give you some brief background about Georgia State University, we were originally founded in 1913 as the Evening Business and Commerce School for Georgia Tech. But then we eventually became our own institution here at Georgia State. And as you'll see on our next slide, a lot has changed since 1913 up until now. So we are now the #1 best public university for undergraduate teaching in the United States. We're also the second most innovative institution in the nation through our student success programs, and #5 for best freshman experience on campus as well. And we are also one of the nation's fastest growing research universities. So if you're interested in doing research, whether it be chemistry, biology, business, or medicine, or nursing, or art, you have plenty of opportunities here in the city and in the heart of Atlanta. And then last but not least, we are also the largest university in the state of Georgia with over 53,000 students. And as a matter of fact, I got an email today letting us know that we are now over 54,000 students here at Georgia State. So if you're looking for that large university experience, Georgia State will definitely be a home for you. But I don't want you to panic. You won't be in those classes with 53,999 other students. As you'll see in our next slide, all those students are divided up between the different colleges and schools here we have at Georgia State University. So for example, if you're interested in public policy, you're going to be the Andrew Young School of Policy Studies. If you're interested in nursing, you're going to be in the Burdine F. Lewis College of Nursing. If you're interested in business, you'll be in the J. Mac Robinson College of Business. So all these different colleges divide into different fields of academic study. So you're not taking courses with 200, 300 other students. You're really just focusing with those students that are in the same areas as yourself. Now, there is one college up here I did want to draw attention to, and that is the Perimeter College. And Perimeter College, some of you may know, was its own independent community college in the past. In this next slide, you'll be able to see some of the benefits of attending Perimeter over the Atlantic campus. So first and foremost, we do have an additional 5 campuses you can attend at Alpharetta, Clarkston, Decatur, Dunwoody, and Newton. But there are, like I said, some benefits to attending Perimeter over Atlanta. The biggest one, of course, is that it's smaller class sizes. Each class is capped at 50 students. So if you want those small class size experiences and be able to establish those relationships with your professors, Perimeter may be a great option for you. The other thing is that it's also 1/3 of the cost of the Atlantic campus. So 1 year here at Atlanta is roughly around $12,000 a year, whereas at Perimeter, it's roughly around $5,000 a year. So again, if you're looking to save some money, maybe have a more flexible or an alternative start to your education, Perimeter will be a phenomenal option for you. Last but not least, you're not just limited to Perimeter, of course. They only offer associate degrees, but after you meet certain requirements and you meet the transition requirements, you are then able to transition from Perimeter over to the Atlantic campus automatically. You just need to have a 3.0 GPA minimum, complete at least 30 credits, which is about a year. And that includes your Area A core, which is usually English 1101, 1102, and then a math course of one type or another, depending on your program of study. So as a art student, you won't have to take a math class, but as a nursing student, you most definitely will. But you know, it's not just going to be the education or the campus or where you're going to be studying here at Georgia State that makes this unique, but it's also the opportunities available to you. So on this next slide here, you'll see 3 different opportunities that we offer at Georgia State University. So of course, one is going to be research, as you can see on the right-hand side of your screen. Students really have so many options to do research, and I love to share this student story simply because it shows you how flexible you can be. For example, this student on the right, she was actually studying biology here at Georgia State, but she really wanted to do marine biology. And unfortunately, that's not a program that we offer. So what she decided to do was tailor her own education to really fit in that experience by doing, I believe it was about 3 semesters of research experience with the Georgia Aquarium, which is the largest aquarium in the Western Hemisphere and the 2nd largest aquarium in the world. So, you know, just straight off the bat, going for those job interviews or applying for those research positions, having that under her belt makes her a much more competitive applicant. Also, you know, being in the heart of Atlanta, you have a plethora of internship, externship, or job opportunities available to you through the Career Services Center or Handshake, our online job website portal, or even just walking around in the streets of Atlanta. I know one of our students who went to Subway just started talking to a random person about his major, his degree, you know, what he wanted to do after he graduate. And it turned out that he was the CEO of a Fortune 500 company right down the street. That CEO offered him an internship, which then turned into a full-time job with benefits. And then that student comes back every single year and offers that exact same opportunity to our tour guides in the Welcome Center. And then last but not least, of course, is our study abroad. Now, I'm a huge advocate of studying abroad. The biggest regret of college students is not studying abroad, and that is my regret. But I definitely encourage you to do it. We do have over 90 different study abroad programs in over 30 different countries, ranging from 1 week to a full year. So if you just wanted to go to Mexico for spring break and do a community service project, you are more than welcome to. But if you wanted to go to, for example, Belgium and do an entire year-long study program there, you're also welcome to do that. And of course, if the biggest obstacle for you to study abroad is finances, we do offer additional scholarships to our students so that way they can afford those plane tickets, visa costs, whatever it is they need to pay for. But beyond opportunities, it's also going to be the community that you'll find here at Georgia State. So on this next slide, you'll see that we have over 400 different student clubs and organizations you can join. Now, keep in mind those clubs and organizations vary in their fields of area or their interest or their subjects. So some of them might be more professional, like our Black Student Union, our Latino Student Services Outreach, or our Model UN Club. We also have some more, just fun social clubs. Like we have an anime club if you love anime, or a cosplay club if you like to cosplay. They even established a waffle club this past year where all they do, and I kid you not, they meet once a week, eat waffles, talk about how good they are, and we give them a budget to do that, right? So you can look through all the 400 clubs and organizations we have here. And even then, if you can't find a club you like, we can help you establish your own club and establish your own legacy here at the university as well. On this next slide here, you'll also be able to see our athletics department or different athletic opportunities that we have available here. And I'm sure many of you recognize this as Chad Turner Field, but actually we have just renamed it to the Center Park Credit Union Stadium. So it's a brand new stadium that we really picked up from the Atlanta Braves. It seats about 30,000 students, and we also, that's where our Division I football team plays as well. Now we do have 16 different Division I sports that you can play here at Georgia State. We have football, baseball, soccer, basketball, golf, and tennis for men's. And then for women, pretty much the same, but they also have track and field and cross country as well. So you can always go on the tryouts, you can do a walk-on tryout, or you can reach out directly to the coach to have that to have them come and scout you if you're at your games if you have any of this upcoming year. And then this is only stage 1 of the renovation project. Stage 2 does include a brand new residence hall right across the street with balconies. It's really nice, but it is only for upperclassmen, so you're gonna have to wait a little bit. And they're also introducing a new shopping and dining district for those students and athletic offices for those athletic students as well. But on the topic of residence halls, we understand that you want to live on campus, you want to have those opportunities. So on this next slide, you'll see that we actually have 3 different residence halls here at Georgia State University: Piedmont Central, Piedmont North, and Patton Hall. One thing I do want to make clear is that housing at Georgia State is not a guarantee. So if you are interested in housing, please apply early. Your meal plan, washing, drying, all that is included, and we don't have any communal bathrooms. They are all private, so you don't need to share with 24 or 25 people that you do not know. But moving on to the admissions part of our presentation on the next slide, you'll see that our profile for the applicant pool of 2019 or 2020, the high school core GPA was between a 3.6 to a 3.86. The SAT was between a 1060 to 1250 SAT, and ACT between a 21 to 28. Honors college, though, was a little bit more competitive, so about a 3.91 GPA average, 1380 SAT, and 31 ACT. One thing I did want to mention, though, is that as of today, we are moving to a test optional policy as per the instructions by our leadership and management team and the University System of Georgia. So, please go ahead and just submit your transcripts and your application. Test scores are not required. However, we do recommend them as well. On this next slide, though, you'll also be able to see our deadlines for the admission cycle. So our application is open. It's going to be on the common application. You can go ahead and start that now and submit it. But the deadline I want you all to remember is December 8th. That is our honors and scholarship priority consideration deadline. That means your application and your transcript need to be submitted before December 8th if you want to be considered for honors college and merit-based scholarships from the admissions office. If you apply by then, you'll also get your decision by January 15th, and you can move forward with applying for housing, financial aid, additional scholarships through our scholarship resource center, and all that sorts. The final deadline is April 1st, and then the final document deadline is June 1st. But once again, I never recommend you wait until the last minute. But on this slide here, you'll also see all of our different scholarship opportunities. So real quick, that middle section where it says merit-based scholarships are all the scholarships that the Office of Admissions offers. Those range in award from about $3,000 each year for 4 years through the 1913 Founders Scholarship to $500 through the Foundation Award for 1 year only. We do have another wide variety of additional scholarships available to our students through the Scholarship Resource Center. And some of those do include the Coca-Cola First Generation Scholarship, which is, as the name implies, for first generation students, or the Presidential Scholarship, which I believe will be due December 8th or November 15th. I definitely encourage you to check with the Honors College on those deadlines. But that is a full ride to the university, or it does cover tuition, housing, and does give you a living stipend. But it's also very competitive. So make sure you submit, letters of recommendation, test scores, transcripts, applications, all that sort of stuff. But as always, make sure that you're looking on third-party websites as well for some additional aid. And, always submit your FAFSA well in advance so we can maximize the amount of aid that we can give you. That is pretty much all I have for today. And with that, I'll be handing it over to my wonderful colleague from UGA, Susan.
Thank you, Kenzo. I appreciate that. And Mary Tipton as well. Great presentations from you both. And on behalf of the Undergraduate Admissions Office of the University of Georgia, I want to welcome you to the Peach State Tour. My name is Susan Bias, and we appreciate you joining us virtually. UGA has a lot to offer students, and in the interest of time that we have tonight together, I'm going to give you a few key takeaways. First, I'm going to share some important updates, which is an exciting year to be sharing updates. I'm going to review our commitment to student success and outcomes, and then I'm going to give you a quick overview about our application process and some data there. So let's get started with the updates. So I know this has been just a very unusual and tumultuous time, and you all have lots of questions. So I'm going to start off right off the bat with two that we have covered, two frequently asked questions we've had covered for the past several months with, in respect to COVID-19. And so the first is, how will you all evaluate our spring grades? So please know that spring grades will look differently for all of you this year. Don't panic. We're going to have grades that are non-traditional, but they're not going to negatively affect your application. With the exception, I would say, is an F. Failing is still a failing grade, so do be aware of that. But otherwise, non-traditional passing grades are acceptable for admissions, they're acceptable for scholarships, and they're not going to impact your decision review. So the next update is very recent, actually, and UGA is moving forward with being test optional for the summer and fall 2021. We have recently tentatively approved, which will be these plans will be approved, finalized early next week. We don't know much beyond that. Like Mary Tipton said, this is all very new and very fresh. So, but what it does mean for Georgia is that we will continue to utilize our whole student review, our whole student approach. So we're going to have a reading component for both early action and regular decision, and we are very adept at reading and have been doing it for many, many years, but this will allow us to look beyond the numbers for students and look to see who will contribute to the campus. So stay tuned for more details on all of that. Next, our final, which I thought was going to be our biggest news, is that UGA is joining the Common App. So we will be on the Common App renewed this year, obviously. So September the 1st will be the first time that you will see that option to apply the Common App. So it will open then, but you'll have three choices: our institutional application, the My Coalition application, or the Common App. So any of them is fine. Pick one and stick with it. So let's talk a little bit about UGA in Athens and some enrollment. So UGA is located in Athens, Georgia. We're about 90 miles northeast of Atlanta. And Athens is considered one of the hippest cities in America. It's cultural, it is very creative and entrepreneurial and inclusive and athletic and musical, and just overall a very welcoming community. It is an important backdrop to the students' experience, and it's within walking distance of campus. So UGA, of course, is pretty fantastic too. It is the birthplace of public higher education in America. And so we have just over 39,000 students that are just at 39,000 students that are on our campus, with nearly 30,000 undergraduate students. We offer 200 plus majors, minors, and programs of study in our 17 different schools and colleges. All right, so a little bit about our commitment to students and what this means for you all. So as one of the largest public institutions to require experiential learning, it makes us kind of unique. And so people are like, well, what does that mean, experiential learning? I like to describe it as an opportunity to have hands-on experience, hands-on learning outside the classroom that applies to real life. And so these take a variety of different forms, but primarily, most commonly, they are research with our world-renowned faculty, study abroad on one of the 7 continents, or having a great internship, or anywhere in the world. So those are opportunities for experiential learning, and we have staff to help support these opportunities for our students. The second is our Double Dogs Accelerated Degree Program. And UGA offers one of the largest arrays of accelerated master's programs, and we call this the Double Dogs Program. So this is an opportunity to earn an undergraduate degree and a master's degree in a 5-year period of time, saving you both time and money and making you a very marketable candidate and a very competitive candidate, giving you this edge as you enter into the workforce. Our students who participate in this program position themselves for success following graduation. And if you want to learn more about the 200 plus programs we have in place, please check that out at doubledogs.uga.edu. All right, next up, more numbers, but numbers are important, and this data tells a story as well. And this story that these numbers tell is about our student success and student support. And first off is our student retention. So this 96%, which is Mary Tipton reference, is a very high percent of students retention. This is from first year, entering from first year students to returning from their sophomore year. So it's very, it's well above the national average. It's well above our peer and aspirational institutes. And so this is a really commitment to students who are connected to the university and happy in the choice that they made. The next number is our 6-year graduation rate, and they make us measure this in 6 years. So this is pretty standard, but I do think, as I was referencing, again, these numbers represent students who are successful in their program. Some of them may stay a little longer to complete a double dog, but these numbers, again, are well above the national average, our peer, and in line with our aspirational institutes. And then finally, I'll reference our graduation rate to employment and graduate school. So again, the students are landing strong on their feet as they're graduating. They are employed or in graduate school within 6 months of graduation. So all a great success. And so, sometimes we talk about success as a buzzword, but I think these are real strong indicators that this is something that we value and feel important for our students. All right, next up is our academic profile. And so when we talk about the academic profile, these are students that applied, who were admitted and were enrolled at the university, and they actually are in their second week of class, I guess now. So however that looks for them this year. But I think what's important to note about these numbers is these numbers share a picture and should be intended as a guideline for you as you consider your application process. You know that there's a middle 50 percentile, and so there's 25% below these students and 25% above these numbers. And they're not minimums and they're not guarantees. They should be considered guidelines as you make the application. We value 4 years of high school, more than 4 hours on a Saturday on a standardized test. And so now, obviously, that has changed in the last 5 hours, but the numbers have changed, not the value. So we still value, so we're looking at your rigor of study and your 5 core academic areas and the grades that you've earned in that. So how have you challenged yourself to and prepared yourself for a rigorous college environment and a selective admissions process? But taking that a step further in our whole student review, how have you demonstrated and contributed to your school and community? And what type of student might you be like if you join us at the UGA family and on our campus community? All right, so some more information, applying first year. So cat's out of the bag, big news. We are Common App this year, so that's super. That's option that you're looking for. As I mentioned, and I've had this, we're not on there until September the 1st. So you won't see us there until that September the 1st date. And that is when our application will, September 1st is our application live for Common App, UGA App, and the Coalition. Do know that we have 2 different application types. And so you can apply either, or deadlines, I should say. You can apply either through the early action or regular decision. The question I get so frequently is, should I apply early action or regular decision? What should I do? And what I say to students is, it's the same process. It's the same application review process. So you really need to look and rephrase it and say, when are you ready? And that is, will lead off to our next slide, which talks about deadlines. So if you're ready and you're happy with your essays, you're happy with your extracurricular activities, you're ready to have your application reviewed in the fall, that's early action with our October the 15th deadline. Typically with that, we will allow students to have an update to their admissions or an admissions decision by early December. If you want some more time, if you just feel like I need some more time to work on my application, I maybe want to have my first semester grades reviewed in here, then take that time and use for regular decision. And so that is a January the 1st deadline. All of our decisions will be made by mid to late March, and the commitment deposit is due for our students, for admitted students, by May the 1st. We do have one scholarship application that requires an actual application, and that is our Foundation Fellow. It is our highest and most premier scholarship, and that is a deadline of November the 1st, and you will need to submit an early action application should you be interested in pursuing that scholarship opportunity. So check out the UGA Honors Program page, as they will have information about that Foundation Fellowship application. All right, moving forward, more applications. So the typical application, you need to know that your application for admissions, with the exception of Foundation Fellow, doubles as your scholarship application. So do a good job on it, and know that we will consider those merit-based scholarships for first-year students. We try to award those close to the time of when we're releasing admissions decisions. But no, we also encourage you to go to our scholarships page, look for what those scholarships entail, and learn more about them there. For financial aid, for need-based aid, for grants, for other federal or state institutional programs, those are going to be processed and use the free application for federal student aid. And our colleagues in the Office of Student Financial Aid will oversee that process. Also, your Hope and Zell, you can apply for FAFSA through that. So be aware of that. There's a priority deadline for December the 15th for UGA And that FAFSA opens for everyone on October the 1st of your senior year. So getting close to the end, I want to invite you all. This was really fast, and there's so much more that we can share. Hopefully it's giving you a little bit of information about the application process, but I really would like to invite you to our virtual campus experience. It's a deeper dive in the admissions process, and then we also have students who lead you on a campus tour. We get around the campus really fast in the amount of time we have together, but they can share their stories and offer some highlights there. Those are offered on varying days during the week, several days. And then we also have varying Saturdays, select Saturdays that we can do that. Like the other schools and institutions, we'll also have other virtual opportunities. So I encourage you to have an email that you check on a regular basis, that you may receive invitations to things so that you're not missed out on any opportunities that way. So that's going to wrap it up for my part of the UGA program. I want to say thank you for you committing time to coming and learning about all of our universities and joining us for this virtual Peach State. So I'm going to turn it back over to Anthony and ask Kenzo and Mary Tipton to join us again. And we'll get started, I think, with the question and answer portion.
Thank you, Susan. Thank you, Mary, Kenzo, and Susan, for that great information that you've provided us and our audience out there as they were able to listen in on some great information that you all shared. I do just want to kind of remind students again, if you do have specific questions, we still have folks that are answering questions for you. So on the bottom of the screen where it says Q&A, feel free to send a specific question to an institution. Again, if you don't feel comfortable, you may think of something a little later or a week or two or tomorrow morning. Feel free, our information for each admissions website is located on the screen there. Feel free to send an email, find your admissions officer, and we will definitely get back in touch with you. So, so this is the open Q&A part where we're going to ask some live questions that we received from students this evening. So gonna start out with, there was lots of talks of the test optional and things not always being taken into consideration, well, things being mattering more than just what you took on a 4-hour Saturday test. So for each of you, talk a little bit more about your whole student, your holistic reviews, because we do have an anonymous viewer that asks kind of what kind of goes into those processes. So if each of you could kind of talk about that, I think that would really benefit our students.
Sure.
I'm happy to start. Sorry, go ahead, Kenzo.
No, you go ahead, Mary, by all means.
Okay, thanks. Well, I'm happy to start. And honestly, I'm probably not going to give a satisfactory answer because that is a long answer that requires more time than we have tonight. But what I want to say is we walk you through everything we're considering in the admission process, including things like institutional fit, which is the one part of this process that is not in your control. It's about shaping a class together for first-year students. We walk you through that on our website. We have some sort of tips and advice. We're actually in the process of adding some videos. So if you would rather hear us talk about it a little bit more, you can do that. So I would encourage you to go and take a look at that. And the other thing I would just want to mention in this process is that an application doesn't just get one look by one person and a decision is made. This is a multi-layered process. Most of our applications are opened, on a computer as we live our lives these days. They're opened 3 to 4 times on average, many more times than that in our admission process, so that multiple staff members in our office, multiple perspectives have taken a look at your application as we work to make a decision together.
Sure, and I guess I'll talk a little bit about Georgia State's admissions review policy and all that. So with Georgia State, to be very frank, we're more of an, academic review school. So typically, without a pandemic, we would require, your test scores and your transcripts, and we would see what those two would be combined. And then determining on, what those numbers look like and what you got on those exams or your GPA, we would then see, if you meet our requirements for the Atlanta, congratulations, you've been offered admissions to the Atlanta campus. But one thing I did not mention in my presentation, of course, and that I do want to bring up now is that, for whatever reason, if you can't, or if you're not offered admissions to the Atlanta campus, that doesn't mean you're, denied admissions at Georgia State. If you don't get into the Atlanta campus, you're most likely going to be deferred or automatically accepted to Perimeter College, where you can start and then transition to Atlanta. But in terms of the holistic review, that really does tie in more into our scholarships, like the Presidential Scholarship or some of those offered through our Scholarship Resource Center. So in those sense, or in those respects, you definitely do want to do a strong essay, include your community service and leadership positions, because you will be competing against other students very similar to yourself who may have, those 4 years of community service or a part-time job or president of Model UN or, whatever club that they may have. So just be aware of that. With admissions, at least, it's just going to be your transcript for this year. And just so everyone knows, it's going to be for Georgia State, a minimum 3.0 to be considered admissible, but it is not guaranteed admission. So definitely keep that in mind.
That is a great question, and like Mary Tipton had it's multi-layered. So I think, again, on our website, if you go and go to the first year portion, and it talks about not only our academic review, but other characteristics and factors that we review for. So they're all listed there, and really look and see how you see yourself, and kind of think about what you're sharing. Think about what you have done in high school. Think about if you had 10 minutes to sit down with me or Anthony or anybody in our office and wanted to, have a conversation. What characteristics do you want to share? And we all acknowledge that spring was weird. And so, you didn't get to play your junior season of baseball, or you didn't get to do the one-act play. But unlike anything I can ever remember, everybody's in the same boat. So be yourself, share this information, and then help us, let us craft that well-rounded campus. We're not necessarily looking for a well-rounded student. We're looking for students who have dedicated their time and their talents and their interests to, something that they're really passionate about. And so, share that information with us, and then we'll take the ball from there to create that class. We do, as Tech does, have a multitude of layers of people that review the process. So it's not just one person sitting there saying yes, no. It is so involved. And so I hope that gives you some a little bit of comfort. I hope seeing us on the screen gives you some, also to realize that we're real people. It's not just some computer that's like spitting out numbers. And there is a lot of experience in admissions review behind that screen. So there is some trust, but also do read what the institutions are looking for. So I think that can help you understand more thoroughly, how to craft your statements and what you want to share with us. So.
Thank you. That's really great information, I think, for students to really understand. This next question I'm going to ask, Mary, if you don't mind addressing, is it recommended to submit standardized test scores even if schools are test optional?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think, honestly, that is a question that probably gets maybe a slightly different answer depending on the school you're asking it to, which, let's be honest, that's the truth for most any question you could ask to an admission office anywhere. We always have our own slight variation on this. I think there are plenty of schools that are test optional, but you're required to submit a test score prior to enrollment. There are schools that are test blind, which means even if you submit it, they're not going to look at it. There are schools that are test flexible. There's just all kinds of iterations of test score policies. That's why when I'm saying to you tonight that I'm not prepared to give you all the nitty-gritty details 5 hours into a policy change, that's why. We have to work through those kinds of questions for each of our institutions. I suspect that in the end, the three of us may be saying slightly different information. So I would encourage you, if you're considering test optional, the most important thing you should know is that I don't know a single school that has a test optional, flexible, or blind policy that doesn't mean it. We all recognize the role that testing plays in admission. And what I mean by that really is the problems that it can introduce to an admission process, some of the biases that are a part of it, the challenges with testing for students from populations in this year, especially more than ever. And so with that, I think if a school is offering a policy like this, you need to know that there is they mean it. You know, it's kind of this like age-old question in admission. If you say something's optional or recommended, did you really mean that you want us to do it anyway? And the answer is no. Like if we're telling you something is optional or recommended but not required, we really want that to be a decision you can make about what allows you to put your best foot forward in the admission process.
I couldn't have said it better, Mary. Thank you so much for that. And students, take a deep breath and give us some time and work with the admissions officers, ask those questions, and that's what we're here for, to guide you all. So the next question is for everyone. So how many of you, the application process, one of the factors is an academic major. So how many of you, that's part of the admissions process of a student's major?
Sure, so I guess I can answer this one first, but here at Georgia State, it won't play that big of a factor in terms of the admissions decision you will receive. At least on our end, it really does help us with is building your schedule once we offer you admissions or give you that offer of admissions. Now, I'm glad that this was brought up, and I'm thank you for asking this question, because I do also want you to be aware of that, you know, sometimes schools have what's called a gated program, which may require a separate admissions policy or admissions process in addition to the university's admissions process. So, you know, especially if you're looking at nursing, if you're looking at business or computer science, and those are gated programs, you definitely want to check with them about their admissions process and all that. But in that case, indicating nursing will help you a little bit in building those schedules to then prepare to apply for those programs. But, you know, it does vary from school to school. So with Georgia State, it's not as important as some other schools, but you know, you're definitely encouraged for our application process.
I'm happy to jump in on that one as well. When you apply to Georgia Tech as a first-year student, you do not apply into a specific program. And what I mean by that is sort of what Kenzo was just describing, whether it's a gated program or there's a lot of institutions where you apply explicitly to a particular program or maybe an entire college, like the College of Business or the College of Engineering. At Georgia Tech, you're applying to be a member of our first year class. You will write on your application, or you will indicate on your application your chosen major, and that is a consideration for us. So when I talk about shaping a class or crafting a class, you'll hear schools talk about that term, and just to give you a sense of what that means, think about the experience that you want to have on a college campus. I hope all of you are looking forward to a time when you can sit in a classroom and be surrounded by people who are different than yourself, who have different perspectives on things, who bring a different academic expertise to the table. If you're working to solve problems, it leads to interesting conversations in your residence halls and in the line for food and all those things that we do on college campuses. And that starts back with creating a class with that type of diversity, and certainly academic diversity is a big part of that. And so that's a consideration as we're putting together the class. In blunt terms, what this means is we could have an entire freshman class of just one major, or a few different ones for that matter, but like just one major making up our whole first year class of 3,300 students. That is not what we want to do, for all the reasons that you can imagine and more. And so we consider what you're applying in terms of shaping a class, but you're not being looked at just by faculty or admission people in that department. It's part of our overall first year admission class.
For the University of Georgia, while we will ask, there's a place on the application that says, you know, what major you're interested in. That we're admitting you not to be an accountant or not to be a chemist. We're admitting you to be a successful student at the University of Georgia. We ask because in our advisory process, when you come for orientation, you're going to be meeting with an advisor. And if we have, I don't know, 5,000 art majors, we need to have enough staff to support. So while oftentimes there are students who will have a major they put down, and they do show in their extracurricular activities and their experiences that they have really done some dedicated work that way. You know, that adds to the process, but it is not a determining factor. So in all honesty, once you're admitted to the university and you submit your commitment deposits, about 2 days after that, you get all your processes rolling, and you can change your major. So we're not admitting by major, we're admitting you to be a successful student at the university. And we have 200 plus majors, minors, programs of study. So sometimes you don't know what you don't know, and there may be something out there that you discover that is just exactly what you're looking for, but didn't realize it at the time.
Thank you all. So I want to get this student's question named Sanaya. I think this is a really great question for each school to kind of touch upon. She's asking, is it mandatory to take AP courses in high school to get accepted into these schools? And I think we may have different grade levels listening or whatnot. So I think that's a great question that we've received from a student. And we'd love to hear from all three of you all with a response.
I'm happy to start. Maybe I was just fastest on the unmute there. So your ability, the courses that you have the ability to take is 100% contextual to the school that you attend. And so we are looking to see that students have challenged and pushed themselves within the context of what's available in their school. And please expand that view a little bit in the era of, lots of students that are pursuing dual enrollment. What's available at your school might literally be at the college down the road, but the curriculum that's available to you, whether that's AP courses, honors level courses, magnet classes, IB, dual enrollment, there's other variations that we see in the admission office. Trust us when we say we've seen it all, and we're looking at that contextually to what's available to you and then how you challenge yourself within that context. So bottom line, if your school does not offer AP, that is not going to be held against you as we review your application.
Yes, so I guess I'll go next. And to really echo what Mary was saying, it really is contextualized to what your school does, right? Some high schools have a full AP program where you can do AP classes from freshman year to senior year and get all the APs and every single one of them and graduate as a bachelor's. But that won't give you a distinct advantage over a student that maybe doesn't have any APs offered at their school. I would definitely say that although it's not a requirement, it is at least heavily encouraged, not necessarily for the admissions process, but for the potential college credit that you can receive, right? I mean, if you do many of those and you get, let's say, 30 transferable credits through AP credits, you just knocked out your freshman year, you may be able to graduate a year early. It's by no means a requirement for you to do all APs or some APs. We do encourage you to do it. But of course, we all look at it in the lens of your school and your admissions profile.
Sure. So echoing what Mary Tipton said, I think that it's important we look at what are the most rigorous courses available in the 5 academic core areas: English, math, science, social studies, and foreign language at your high school, and what's available there. And how have you challenged yourself? How have you prepared yourself, again, for a rigorous academic environment and a selective admissions process? And that's going to look a little bit different for everyone. So just be aware that you're challenging yourself. But that we're also communicating and work closely with your high school counselors to know what those classes are. So this is a team approach, and you're not going to be penalized for not taking something that's not available at your class.
Thank you all for that. And one final question I'd like to ask. We've talked about all this great stuff, but could you kind of remind our viewers again, when does your application go live and what platforms do you all have that they can use to apply?
I'm going to go ahead and jump first. How's that, Mary Jo? Well, and because I've already said it 3 times, so I'll just go and reiterate. So this is super. We are opening September the 1st. And, sometimes people think, gosh, that's only for early action, but that's for regular decision as well. So the application opens, and depending on which deadline you want to choose, depends on how much time you have to complete that. So September 1st for us, and then yay, new for Common App, and then we have our institutional application, and then the My Coalition, and it really doesn't matter to us which one you use. If you're applying to other Common App schools and that makes sense, then jump on that. Other My Coalition schools, that makes sense. Any of them are fine, honestly. Just pick one and stick with it.
We are only, our only application platform, I should say, is the Common Application. We made the decision this year to streamline our application process and frankly, just take away your choice, which I realize sometimes is a negative thing, but in this case, we feel like in a year where there's lots of questions about lots of things. Let's just keep it simple. One application, Common App. It's been open since August 1, so you can get started. If you're on the call, by the by, and you are younger than a senior, if you're an underclassman, you should know that both the Common Application and the Coalition application allow you to start an application profile in their systems whenever you want to in high school. Some students might use that to build out a resume over time, just add notes along the way to their application. But certainly if you're a junior, as you get into the second part of junior year, going ahead and taking a look at that can be a really helpful way to get started on the application moving into the summer before senior year. So, but yeah, we're open, ready to review your Common Application when you're ready.
And I'll wrap it up this time. So Georgia State, the application opened on August 1st, and the Atlanta campus application can be found on the Common Application. But if you're interested in starting at the Perimeter College, you can also find that application on our website through the institutional application. Just go to perimeter.gsu.edu. You'll be able to find it there. But Common Application, August 1st, you can go ahead and get started and submit that application if you'd like.
Thank you all. That is all the time that we have for tonight. So again, thank you for joining us. After this webinar, you will be directed to a post link for the Peach State Tour. So again, thank you for joining us tonight. And let me sign off by saying, go Jackets, go Panthers, and go Dogs.